Around and around we go. Where do we go? Nobody knows, except I do. And today we are talking about the 3 startup hurdles for foreigners in Japan. This conversation wouldn't be as generic as the other ones, which could be applied to any destination. And the reason for that is because I work in Japan, so everything I experience startup wise is dealing with Japan as a foreigner. With that out of the way, I'll briefly mention what the big 3 startup hurdles are. If you've been on the internet, whether it was Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you would know that there's a running joke about the phone number, bank account, and lease for Japan, and the fact that it's hard to get any of those 3. And without one of the 3, you can't get any of the 3. And though it's a joke, it is true to a very large extent. Because I haven't really seen on the internet people giving solutions to the big 3, I came up with the solution that worked for me. So the first thing you should do is get your phone number. The second thing you would need to do is get your apartment. And then the third thing you can do is get your bank account. Students might have a unique situation because they'll be with the college. However, I'm doing this working abroad. This answer is for people who are coming to work abroad. Phone number is the easiest one you could get, and you can get your SIM card sent to you before leaving your home country. Apartment is the next easiest thing because depending on who you use, which I'll go into further in detail later, you could sign for your apartment while you're still in your home country. And third is the bank account. The bank account requires the most amount of documentation and you are required to be in person. That means you have to be here to even get the bank account. So let's get right into it. Step number 1, getting your phone number. Though the phone number is the easiest thing to get, you still need to send some documentation to the phone company. The main 2 documentations are your certificate of employment and your work visa. The work visa is used to confirm that you have permission to come to this country. Therefore, you're allowed to have a long term phone plan with a phone number. And the certificate of employment, if you're not a part of the JET program, is to prove that the company that you're working under is valid. If you're with the JET program, unfortunately, you don't get the certificate of employment, which can become a hassle because they'll keep asking for it. But if you go with some more well known foreign friendly phone companies, they'll understand and they will work with you. What are those, one might ask? Well, one is Sakura Mobile, one is Mobile Mobile, which is spelled Mobale. Sadly, all of these phone plans are going to be more expensive than the ones that you'll see once you come into Japan. And that's because they deal with foreigners. And number 2, most of the other phone plans that are here that are cheaper, they require you to have your alien registration card and your My Number card, which you can't get until you sign up for an apartment, which you cannot get unless you have a phone number. See, so you kind of run into a conundrum. Now that we have cleared up that conundrum, I will briefly talk about the top 3 phone companies. So Sakura Mobile to me is the most popular one amongst the foreigners. Their internet service provider is with Docomo, which is one of the top ones. I would say under SoftBank. And due to that reason, they have higher fees. So they have the highest admin fees. But if you stay around and once you move into your apartment, you are able to bundle it with home Wi Fi for a slight discount. But once you kind of get acclimated to your home, you probably want to go to a cheaper internet provider. Next, we're going to talk about GTN Mobile. GTN Mobile is under the GTN network, which is the global trusted network. They run quite a few things. They can help you with your rent. They have home internet and they have a phone plan. They can also help with credit cards as well. It's basically like a one stop shop for all of the foreigners to get themselves started with. Most people start to migrate out once they stayed here for a while. But if you're looking for a place that you could just maybe go and do it in all one company, it would be GTN. Their internet service provider is Rakuten Mobile, which is okay. You'll just deal with congestion a lot more because they do it based on how many people are in that area. So if you stay in Tokyo, you might get slower internet because you're using Rakuten Mobile. And the last phone number provider is Mobile Mobile. So this one offered US delivery, and I use mobile for my phone plan. They did require me to give them a visa, but they didn't require me to give them a certificate of employment. So that's great. I did have to have a physical SIM card to get it into my phone. So if you don't have a SIM card in, you could sign up for an eSIM pickup, but you have to do it at the airport. You would have to do it during opening hours. They use SoftBank, and I really enjoyed using their internet. Had I not ran into an issue with this company, I probably would have stayed, but I just didn't want a headache anymore. So I switched to Rakuten Mobile, which is cheaper, but the internet is not as great as mobile. Do your research on the pricing. They do have different discounts and opportunities for foreigners, so you can keep your mind on that. Take into consideration that they have admin fees and activation fees, and they have eSIM fees and SIM fees. So there's a lot of fees. You have to calculate that up to figure out which phone plan might be best for you and or which one is cheaper. To me, mobile became the cheapest option. Congratulations. You now have completed your first hurdle, the phone number. Now we're on to the second hurdle, which is apartment hunting. Apartment hunting is a pain. You have to keep looking at different apartments, figuring out which one fits you. You got to figure out if the landlord is open to even hosting foreigners and the time difference in which they would want to maybe do a tour and the time difference in which you have to work it can be a very draining process. Some people don't even know where to start with the apartment hunting process. So I am going to give two company recommendations, and then I will give a third option, but the third option requires you to be in the country. Before I get into those options, I have to talk about some terms that you will run across when you are apartment hunting. One is a guarantor. This, in US terms, is like a cosigner. Because they don't trust foreigners to pay the rent, they want somebody else to back them up, aka a cosigner. I haven't met a rental company that did not require a guarantor. You will have to pay a fee for the guarantor unless you know that person intimately. This might be your partner, maybe a host family that trusts you, somebody they can go and verify that's in Japan, not abroad, in Japan. And people get this confused with the emergency contact. The emergency contact is his name. It's a person you contact for emergencies. When you are talking to people to see who could be your guarantor or your emergency contact, you need to specify that. So let's say you're trying to talk to somebody about getting an apartment, and it's like, can I have your phone number, your birthday, your address, and maybe some digits? They're going to look at you and they're going to ask you why. And in their mind, they're thinking you're trying to make them a guarantor, which means a cosigner. They don't want to cosign for anything. So you need to look at them and tell them, hey, I need your information to be an emergency contact. Okay. Or, hey, can you be my emergency contact? Oh, okay. Yeah, they can do that. They just won't sign for a guarantor. And what's going to happen is the landlord company, the rental company, they're going to call them. They're going to call and verify it. So you can't really be like, oh, I'm going to say they're my emergency contact, but they're really are going to be my guarantor. They're going to call and verify it with the people. So you can't lie about it. Just as an FYI for those who would try. Key money. Key money is a new term because we don't do this in the US. Key money is basically thank you, landlord, for letting me live here money. Typically, this is about 1 month's worth of rent. You're not getting that money back at the end of your lease. It is for them to have. Some places will say you don't have to have key money, other places are going to require it. So, yeah, just keep in mind if you're giving key money, it's not the same. A deposit is a security deposit, which is also about 1 month's worth of rent. This money, if the landlord thinks it's appropriate, you can get back. If they decide they need to make changes because of the damage that's done in the apartment, then you're not going to get a deposit back. Next term is upfront payment, which means on top of the key money and on top of the deposit, you are required to pay 1 month's rent up front. Now, the payment option that they give you is the way that you'll have to pay for it up front. If they require it in cash, you'll do it in cash. If they accept card, then you can pay for it in card. Next term is agency fee. So, if you're going through a rental agency, which most people would be, you are going to be required to pay the agency fee. This is basically the agent's commission. The cost, I would say, is basically around 10% of the total cost to close the contract, which means 10% of your guarantor's fee, the key money, security deposit, and the upfront payment. And then I think times that by like 10 to maybe 20%. And that would be the agency fee, their commission. And then the last thing is your cancellation fee. Cancellation fee is basically 2 months worth of rent if you leave your contract early. Now that disclaimer and words are out of the way, let me go into the companies. First one, GTN Rent. Because it's under the Global Trusted Network, they not only do phone plans, but they also do rent. Not only do they do rent, they also do guaranteeing, or they are a guarantor. So you can search through their database, and the database that they have are with companies, rental properties that are willing to rent to foreigners. So you don't really have to guess whether or not they're open to it because they're on that website. Their website itself promotes the fact that these people are willing to rent to foreigners. They say it's supposed to be the easiest thing. You are able with this company to do a viewing of apartments virtually. You will have an agent sit down with you and kind of discuss your options, figure out what you want, and work with you on that. And then once you have that agent, they'll kind of work with the rental company to figure out contract agreements. Once they figure out the contract agreements, whether or not they can bargain for the key fee to go up, if the room fee went down, if they're changing the lease term, all of that will be changed. You'll be notified of it. They'll send you some paperwork. If you agree with the paperwork, they can give you an option to pay for it with credit card or a bank transfer. You can do all of this from the US, so it's very nice. You don't have to worry about looking for a guarantor because they are a guarantor company as well. So it's all in one, and to me, it wraps up very nicely. Now, option number two is Jecto, which is Jecto. Now, where I live, I went under this company. So it's common where I'm at. They have a website as well, but the difference between that website and GTN is the fact that you aren't confirmed whether or not the landlord will rent to you. So you have the rental company who can approve you, but if the landlord is like, I don't want to deal with foreigners, they're not going to accept your agreement and make you sign a lease. Another thing that might occur is the fact that when I went, all of the sales rep spoke in Japanese. So you either need to have a good translator or you need to be fluent enough in Japanese to get by. But they were willing to help and they were really nice. And my landlord was willing to work with me, and he's not too far away. So I'm very grateful for this company. Now, this could just be a conflict of interest, so please take what I say with a grain of salt and do your own research to confirm whether or not this would be a nice fit for you. I don't know whether or not they allow for virtual house tours or apartment tours, but they do offer in person. Mm, the last time I went, which was about 2 years ago, they only had certain options. One was bank transfer from a Japanese bank, and I think it was cash. I don't think card was a choice at that point in time. And that wraps up Jecto. And the last one, which is still in person, would be finding a local option. So when you walk around Japan, and specifically this time around Tokyo, you might walk and then you'll see a bunch of floor plans being taped onto a window. If you see, that is a rental company trying to rent out some apartments, or it is a company trying to sell houses. So some companies will build you a house and some companies are trying to sell you a already pre-made house. If you find one for rent, that is great. You might have concerns with the fact that they might not be fluent in English. So you're going to need more translation support. And for them, there's a preference to have an in person translator rather than a machine translator. That way, there isn't any misconceptions that are to arise. Then there's the increase in chance that this company might have to turn you down because you're a foreigner. Most people I know went through GTN because GTN was foreign friendly. The more you go out, the more options you can look at. However, it increases your chances of denial more. But if you're willing to take the risk and you're able to put yourself in a apartment or like an Airbnb as your temporary housing while you set up appointments to go and look and do apartment hunting in Japan, then I would recommend that as well. So when I arrived in Japan, I didn't have an apartment. So what I did was I was in communication with my current landlord, and he agreed to have an apartment tour. So I was staying at a hotel. I filled out all of my information at the immigration at the airport to that hotel. They were fine with that. Once I went into the apartment tour, I said yes. About a week or two later, I was able to sign the contract. And then I think 2 to 3 days later, I was able to move into my apartment. So I'm saying this to back up what I'm going to give advice on. So my first advice for you is to look at your apartment before saying yes. Though there are legal requirements for rental companies to post pictures that are the exact unit, some rental companies can be a little bit iffy. Sometimes they don't update it. I'm read between the lines. I'm trying to be very unsuable at this point. Some of the rental companies may forget to update the room number, maybe the room location, some of the fees because they thought they were posting another room versus the one that you're about to get. And the issue is it doesn't matter if it was a miscommunication and or if the room they showed you isn't the room that you got, because if that room is room 105 and you signed the contract for room 104 and you agreed to it, they're going to be like, it doesn't matter. You signed for 104. Why would you think you would get 105? Well, I saw 105 virtually. And it's like, oh, well, that was an issue. That room was already rented out. We actually meant to give you 104. If they give you that oopsie, do not sign the contract. Make them give you the tour again and make sure they show you the room number. If they do not do that, cut it off and go to a whole nother apartment. Because that's to me is a bit concerning. I can say that. It's a bit concerning. Which brings me into my next step. Please, please, please double read your final contract. Confirm that all of the information is correct and is what was agreed upon when you were having conversations either with your agent, with the landlord themselves, with the guarantor company, because whatever you sign in the final contract is set in stone. They're not going to let you renege on it because you're like, well, our text messages show that. You're not in the US. You might have a legal case, but what Japanese lawyer is going to take it on? And most importantly, who's going to go against a rental company for a foreigner? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's improbable. Be aware. Catch yourself. I myself had that situation. So I'm speaking from experience. If you don't catch it, they might not catch it either. And by the time you gave them your money, sign that contract, it's too late. You can't sign for another apartment unless you cancel your current contract, which then you accrue cancellation fees. And if you remember what I said vocab wise, that's 2 months worth of rent, all because they want you to cancel it. And you be like, I don't want to sign that. They're gonna be like, well, that's what's required. So either A, you're not breaking your contract, or B, you're not gonna be able to get another apartment. And hunt. The last advice for apartment hunting is advocate for yourself. This is where you'll be living. Your agent's not living there. The landlord's not going to live there. They might live in one of the rooms at the location, but they're not going to be living in your room. You're going to be living there, and you're going to have to deal with every consequence because you didn't speak up for yourself. If that is where you want to live, you want to make that bed, you can go and lie in it. But I'm telling you, I didn't want to go do that. I didn't want to lie in that bed, so I didn't sign an apartment to go stay there. You're going to need to tell them what you do want and what you don't want. And you got to be firm on your yes and firm on your no's. Have your negotiables, but then also confirm there are things that you're not negotiating. If if the renter's price is a non-negotiable, then you need to tell them that up front. If you want to have a floor plan, then you need to tell them the type of floor plan is non-negotiable. Stick up for yourself because I'm telling you, it can go in a blink of an eye. You will be in a contract you never wanted to be in. Now that you got the advice, you got yourself to the apartment, you agreed, you liked the place, you explored the place, you advocated for yourself, you got what you wanted. Now it's time for apartment lease signing. You're going to need a few things. One is your work visa, One is your passport, another is your certificate of employment, your signature and or Hanko, and your payment option, all there. They'll help you go through the process. They'll explain your rights, explain each and every different paperwork. They're going to sign it. You're going to sign it. And then you'll be able to take a copy with you home. And then congratulations, you have an apartment. Yay! The second hurdle is done. And then you're on to your third hurdle, which is the bank account. But before you can get a bank account, you need to sign for immigration so you can get your ZyDU card and your My Number card. So once you sign a lease and they give you a move-in date, 2 weeks after that move-in date is the deadline for you to go to the ward office to notify them that you have moved in. So you're going to go to your city ward office, wherever it is. You're going to wait. You're going to fill out some paperwork. Typically, there's options in English. You'll go in the back. You'll pick one of those sheets up. You'll fill it out. Make sure that it's completed. And to me, I just say bring all your documentation that is involved with Japan. So work visas, certificate of employment, your lease agreement, and every other paperwork involved, because I don't know what they need. And if you don't have what they need when they ask for it, you're going to have to come back a whole day and repeat the cycle. And depending on which ward office you go into, it could be a good 2-3 hours being there. And I know you don't want to wait another 2 to 3 hours. So I bring all my travel documentation. And once they tell me what they need, I just pull it out. Here you go. Is there anything else you're concerned about? No? All right, cool. They help me fill everything out. And on that day, you have the option to sign up for your ZyDU card, which they'll put your new address on the back of, and your My Number card. It won't come that day, but they will help you fill out the process that day. I say go ahead and get it, because you don't want to deal with the headache of trying to fill out online. Then you're running into issues with it online. Then you have to go into the ward office to get it fixed. Once you figure out you have to get that fixed, you then have to wait for the paperwork for them to come, say you, hey, they got it. Then you have to go back to the ward office just to pick it up. And then they make you confirm a few things. You have to put in a PIN. It could be very tedious. My advice is, if you're going to sign up for it then. But that won't be necessary for you to get your bank account. I just want to add in that tidbit of advice. And please, 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 for the love of God, make sure that your name is spelled the same on every documentation in katakana and your alphabet name. You'll run into a difference in name. Oh, you're about to have a headache. That happened to me one time, and I had to go to the tax office to get it fixed because they cut off my name because it was too long. So, just word of advice, don't, just make sure everything's the same. Make sure everything's the same. Now, the moment we've been waiting for, the final hurdle, the bank account. Now you got to figure out what bank account you need to go with. To me, to make it the easiest, I would say go with the bank account that your job recommends, because most likely they'll do an internal transfer, which saves them money, but it also gets your money faster. So I just go with it. And if you're like, well, I really hate that bank, just make yourself 2 bank accounts. You take money from the ATM from the one bank account and then you put it in the other bank account. You're just going to do the other bank account by yourself. Your goal is to make sure that your paycheck comes on time and it is the right amount every time. So I went with what the job recommend. If you have a bank account that you really want to get, then get it, and you'll have to talk with your job about how that would look payment wise. But it's your life. You make it. If you don't want 2 bank accounts, get the one you want and then talk to your job and figure out what options they have. Now, when you're at your said bank, you're going to need your alien, I say your ZyDU card, your alien card, possibly your My Number card. Both can work. You're going to need your contract of employment. You're going to need your US Social Security card, because they're going to connect it. Because the US have a tax policy where anything over 10,000 USD in an account at one time would be taxed, they're going to need your Social Security number. So I recommend having your Social Security card. I recommend having your passport. And if you get My Number card before you need to get your bank account and they allow you to have a resident certification, I recommend taking that with you as well, just because you don't know what the agent would ask. And I do know what the agent would ask. I was there. but I don't know if they would have required me to have a residence of certification if I went by myself. A coworker helped me, which I am grateful for her each and every time I see her. So I had a little bit of help in that manner. But for those who are going to try to do it solo or with light help, I just recommend taking all of this and then they'll figure it out. And hopefully you can have someone who can help you that's bilingual and can help advocate on your behalf and answer or ask any questions. Because I'm going to be honest, there isn't a bank that I've been to where the tellers speak English. I'm not saying they have to speak English. I'm saying some of these banks promote themselves as being foreigner friendly, and it's not foreigner friendly. So, for your best chance of getting the bank account to go smoothly, just take a person who's bilingual with you. You're going to fill out some paperwork. You most likely are going to have to set up an appointment. You set up the appointment on their website. You come in at the time, they'll help you out. If you don't have a person, they don't mind doing translation, but you're going to be set off to the side because they're going to be like, you're going to take a while. So, because it's going to take a while for you, we're going to put you in this little corner and then they're going to take other people at the same time. By the end of it, you will either have your passbook or they'll give you confirmation that they're going to send you a cash card. So, a cash card is basically an ATM card and it can only be used for the ATM. You can't use it to purchase anything. If you want a debit card, you're going to have to sign up for a debit card at the bank when you're asking for it. And they can tell you whether or not you can or whether or not you can't. You wait a while, then they'll help you get the app. And on the apps, you'll be able to do wire transfers, this, that, and the third. I say get both. If you can't get both. Because if you have to wait for your cash card, you won't be able to access your bank account unless you go up to the physical bank. If you want the passbook, I say get both. I mean, it's going to be a cute thing that you can keep with you as memorabilia once you leave, and you'll be able to get cash immediately after using your passbook. And that is it. We finished it. We did all three hurdles. Hopefully that made sense. If not, I'm sorry. I don't got any more energy in me. This was extensive. So, around and round we go. Where did we go? We went and talked about the big 3 startup hurdles for foreigners in Japan. Pray for me because the next episode I'm going to talk about the biggest hurdles for foreigners, and that might be even more extensive than this one. So, yeah, I will see you there.